retired after 18 seasons running the Ravens. Such a rarity in the NFL. His accomplishments start with the Super Bowl win, but he won 180 games and 6 division championships along the way. Baltimore missing the playoffs for the first time since 2021. They were an insane game away Sunday night from being there again. Meanwhile, weeks after a contentious trial, then settlement with Michael Jordan and 2 NASCAR teams, the sports commissioner, Steve Phelps, is stepping down. During that trial, several comments from Phelps considered derogatory towards team owner Richard Childress and some others were revealed. NASCAR says the departure was Phelps' decision. He's been in NASCAR since 2005. Meanwhile, what a win for the Hornets last night, beating the defending NBA champs by 27 at their place. Charlotte outscoring the Thunder 66-38 in the middle 2 quarters. The Hornets hitting 51% of their threes, 19 of 37. LaMelo Ball hitting about as ridiculous of a shot you'll see at the shot clock. Brandon Miller, 28 points off 7 threes. The Rook Con Knipple, 23 off of 5. Hornets have now won 4 of 7.
I think just how we started from the jump, with our physicality and what we wanted to do defensively, that really spurred the rest of it. We can be an elite offensive group when we play with the pass and we play fast. And so that's what we've been doing for the past, half a month. And so we want to keep it going. Yeah, so we were composed. We came in here like we belonged, and we got to do that every night.
All right, they'll try to do that tomorrow night. They host Toronto. By the way, that was the biggest win for any NBA team ever while facing the reigning MVP and reigning champs. Wow. 27-point victory was the outcome. Unbelievable game for the Hornets. They're all healthy, and when they're healthy, they're kind of fun to watch, and they're good.
That's a statement made.
It's been a strong stretch about the last 3 weeks.
Shot across the bow for the rest of the NBA.
The broadcast was pretty fun, too, for those who are watching.
It always is, especially that LaMelo shot. I mean, come on.
Oh, man.
How did he hit that?
The commentary was great.
Yeah.
Fun times here in Charlotte. Don't forget Panthers on the Plus, a live one tonight at 9. And we'll see you tonight at 6:30. Weather Impact and the news from 7 to 9.
Welcome in, everybody. Chief Meteorologist Brad Petovich here with your live weather impact here for Tuesday, January 6, 2026. So 6/26, here we are. It is crazy to think we're already 6 days into the year. Doesn't feel like January, right? It's been super warm. Today was a warm day in the mid-60s. We're going to be in the 70s tomorrow. But I want to talk about something tonight. If you want to go outside and check it out right now, we're going to start with our tower cam. And right in the middle of your screen, that is not a speck that you see on your screen. That is actually that bright looking star. That is actually the planet Jupiter. Why am I talking about Jupiter? It is very bright. This is the brightest and biggest it will be throughout the entire year here on Earth, because it's in opposition. You can see it from our Monroe camera as well, a little bit clearer there. What does opposition mean? It basically means we're between the sun and Jupiter is at its closest approach to the Earth in its orbit and our orbit. So kind of things all line up here. So this is about as bright and as big as it's going to be. It's always pretty bright, but it's really bright, and it's a large planet. If you have a telescope or binoculars or even a good camera, zoom in on that thing, focus it really good, take a picture, and then crop it. You can actually see some of the Galilean moons. I'm actually probably going to take my telescope out tonight and take a sneak peek and see what kind of, even the camera. I always get better shots of the camera actually with some of those images. Now, the good news, we got clear skies to see Jupiter tonight, and if you spent any time outside today, you know how warm it is. But you think it's warm today, wait till tomorrow. I should have skipped over tonight's temperature because it's kind of key, because tonight we're only going to drop down to maybe 50, 52, which, by the way, is the normal high for this time of year. So if you're starting at the normal high in the morning, it's not going to take much to blowtorch up into the mid-70s. And again, super warm. It's not unheard of to have 70 in January, but it is honestly pretty rare. On average, we would do this maybe once every January, so that's the average since 1878. We haven't had 2 days above 70 in January since 2022, which is 3 years ago now, plus, and we haven't had more than 2 days since 2017, which ironically is the last time the Panthers were in the playoffs. So maybe there's something to that. Now, why is it so warm? Just like we saw around Christmas time, gigantic heat dome. This would be like the heat domes we see in the summer, but when you get them in the winter, it's not crazy hot, near 90, but it is near 70, which ironically is pretty close to the normal, for early April, maybe early October, not early January. On average, we should be in the low 50s. And look at this temperature forecast this week. This is really going to be the story. The record's 77 tomorrow. It's definitely possible, but I think we're probably going to be just shy. A little bit cooler on Thursday with a kind of a backdoor front. And I say cooler just relatively because it's still going to be 69 or 70. Friday, we're back in the low to mid 70s. Both Friday and Saturday, the record highs are like 74 and 73. So those are both a little bit more doable. But Saturday, the only reason we're not warmer is because we're likely going to have showers around. Speaking of that, when it's this warm this time of year and we get a cold front, you know what that means? Severe weather. We've got a risk of severe storms in the middle of the country, both Wednesday and Thursday, and eventually that shifts to the east on Friday. So naturally, people would say, uh-oh, are we going to see severe weather? Right now, I don't expect to see severe weather, but I will say this. I do think we could have some thunderstorms, maybe a rumble of thunder on Friday night, Saturday, depending on the timing of this front. Right now, it looks like the front gets here sometime early to mid-afternoon. It is slowing down just a hint from yesterday, if you remember Tim and I talking about this, because Saturday's key. That's the Panthers' home game, right? So we know we're probably going to have rain at some point during the start of this game, possibly the whole game. But what you might not be prepared for is a lightning delay. Now, who would have thought that in early January? We got a playoff game in January. And I looked back, because we played the Rams back on November 30th. It was 47 degrees and drizzly. And right now, the forecast for Saturday is 70 degrees with thunderstorms possible. So go figure there. That is a wild difference. But I think most folks, especially Panther fans, probably want the rain because they think it's going to slow down the Rams' offense. We'll see if that actually happens. But I think it can make it a sloppy game, maybe even the field a little bit. Certainly something we'll keep an eye on. Now, just like I mentioned yesterday, it's still pretty early. It's only Tuesday. Rain timing is the most fickle thing to forecast at distance or time. So while we do have rain in the forecast for Saturday, stay tuned. The timing could fluctuate quite a bit between now and then because that front speeding up or slowing down could have some significant impacts on what we see on Saturday. But this week, before we get to that, we got to get through all this warm air. The reason we have the chance of storms are because we're going to get October-like or April-like. They're very similar climatologically weather. And then going into the end of the weekend next week, temperatures kind of more January, December-ish 50s, which are at least closer to average. It's certainly not Arctic air. I know a lot of people are talking about a big blast of cold air. I just don't see it right now. And when we look at the 6 to 10 day, still looks pretty mild here in the southeast. I think if anything, it's just back to average temperatures. But if you look long range, and again, I probably should change it. The averages are now 52 and 32. The gray is near average. So just near average is a cold blast. And when you're in the 70s, average is going to feel pretty cold because that's 20 degrees cooler than what we're going to see this week. So while it might feel like it's not going to be that cool, it is going to feel cool in comparison to the 70s. So let's look ahead to the weekend. I know it's Tuesday. It's never too early to look at the weekend. 70 on Saturday. Again, 50% chance of scattered showers, maybe a rumble of thunder. Didn't think I'd be saying that in early January. And I know the wives' tale. It's not true. Thunder in the winter does not mean snow within 10 days. We can show you the data. It just means a pattern change. Rarely do we get snow within 10 days of thunder. It happens like 3% of the time. But your Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast will show you pretty warm here the next 4 days through that Panthers game. That front comes through on sometime on Saturday, maybe during the Panthers game. That's why we're worried about the chance for lightning. And then cooler Sunday. And then next week, we'll show you the 10-day forecast. You can see temperatures. Yeah, it's colder, but not crazy cold. In fact, it's pretty close to average. 52 and 32 are those averages right now. Monday will probably be the coldest. We'll probably see a couple nights back below freezing, which is something we haven't seen in quite some time. So coming up in 2 minutes, we're going to talk about snow, not so much here, but what happened 30 years ago in the Northeast, the Great Lakes, Hawaii, and then we'll talk about maybe the Panthers game. Stick around. All right, welcome back, everybody. As always, Tim Buckley joins me from WFMY. And Tim, I thought we'd start tonight with something that we haven't seen a lot of lately, and that is snow. Because it seems weird. We're talking about 70s this week, but today's kind of a big anniversary for anybody who's a snow hound in the Mid-Atlantic, the southeast, maybe even up into Pennsylvania. This is an anniversary of like an all-timer. The people that remember this one, I don't think it even had a funny, cool name like Snowmageddon or Snowpocalypse or anything. It was just the blizzard of 1996, Tim. And James is putting up the map for us. But when I looked at some of these totals, I do remember this. I was in school at the time. I was at Ohio State. I do remember this storm quite vividly because it affected the nation's capital so much, and New York City, which obviously two media capitals. It got a lot of publicity. But for folks here in the Carolinas, this was a pretty good storm. The mountains got 1 to 2 feet of snow, and it was a legit blizzard, Tim. It had wind and cold, so it had all those ingredients that we would actually qualify for a blizzard. And I will say, oftentimes the word blizzard gets misused. It doesn't always mean snow. It has to do more with wind, 35-mile-an-hour winds. This had both, so the snow and the wind, which made it a legit blizzard.
Really does. And like you said, it's so right that the word blizzard often, it gets attributed to just a big storm. Or, hey, you got a lot of snow, it must have been a blizzard. Blizzard is really more the visibility and a blinding type of snowfall, right? Where you have two things going on, really windy weather and really snowy weather. In the Midwest, you can even get a ground blizzard where it's not snowing at all. This one is, this is a crazy storm. With the big map you just showed there, you're not talking about a couple of states. This is an entire region of the country going from the Midwest, from like Indiana, Ohio. The color table doesn't even do this one justice, in my opinion. To me, light blue usually feels like 2 to 4 inches. That's 10 to 20 inches. It goes from Boston to Asheville. That's nuts. And the darker shades, that's when you're in the multiple feet categories. And right around, like you said, D.C., Philly, Central Virginia, that's about as big of a storm as you can get. And it's amazing that it's 30 years ago now. 96 is 30 years ago.
And for those who can see the map, it's kind of hidden there, but NESIS, which does, they categorize winter storms by their impacts, Tim. And this one, if you see, this was a Category 5 winter storm, meaning it had a massive impact on the population, infrastructure. Many areas were completely impassable because the drifting and the snow made roads completely closed down. D.C. shut down, I think, for a week. I posted about this earlier today, and I had a lot of great people that grew up in either Pennsylvania, Virginia, or West Virginia, and they talked about how they were out of school for like 2 weeks, and there were a lot of power outages. So from a winter storm standpoint, sometimes we think about locally, we kind of make fun of winter storms because they're more fun. They don't do this. Was a legit, dangerous event. This had a huge impact on a lot of people.
Yeah, and they really can be dangerous, right? We always talk about or think about the travel conditions, and that's the main one with most of them. But lasting impacts, people getting stuck, people getting stranded, power impacts, cold weather, all of those things go into it. And just a huge societal shutdown for a little while in all of these areas. I was digging through some of the data, Brad. Greensboro up in this way, no stranger to getting big snowstorms from time to time, but 1996, this one was about 11 and a half inches officially for us, and it ranks out as being the 6th biggest snowfall, 2-day snowfall all time. So that's a big notable event. Our data goes back to 1903, and that's the 6th biggest snow all time for our area. It looks like a little bit less for Charlotte, but still noteworthy, right?
Yeah, so just to break this down further, just to show you from an impact standpoint, that NESIS is 11.7. I don't know, James, if you can move that over a little bit. So if you see that 11.78 and the Category 5. So if you could bring up my laptop, James, I'll show you what those numbers actually mean. So their scale that they used, Tim, Category 5 is anything with a 10 plus. This was 11.78, and they consider this extreme. I have to scroll through here and see that this this is number 2 in their rank of all-time impactful storms. Number 1 is the superstorm of 1993. So this would be number 2 on their list. So from a winter storm standpoint, at least since they were keeping track of these categories, this is number 2 most impactful storm they've kept track of. And I'm trying to see how long back they go. I'm trying to think if they go back. Doesn't give me an actual date, but Paul Cosin and Dr. Ussolini came up with this scale. So if you watch Paul Cosin, he was the winter weather expert on the Weather Channel for a while, and Dr. Ussolini was the head of the National Weather Service. They came up with this scale, and this would have been number 2 on their list, Tim. So this really was, from a meteorological standpoint, this is definitely one of those all-timers.
I like it because it's trying to give you some sense of, how big of a deal was it?
Yeah.
And how expansive was it? And, how many people? These are all things that matter when you're assessing the impact of a snowstorm, which is very different than assessing a tornado or a hurricane. It's a different type of weather event. And it looks like they mentioned there's about 88 events in their database that qualify. And this was number 2. And the fact that those 2 big ones are within just 3 years of one another, I mean, everybody in the Carolinas remembers the 93 storm. Most people do, over the whole East Coast, right? And then to get another one like it 3 years later is pretty impressive. Not the biggest snowfall we've ever had here, but a huge impact all the same.
Yeah, so I'm just scrolling through here quick, Tim, just to get people. They have a storm from 1958 on this, so this is a pretty big database. And to think that this is number 2, I'm trying to scroll down and think of memorable storm that kind of got my love for weather. Was this January 1978 blizzard. I was 5 years old, and I remember that storm growing up in Ohio. That's number 10. Those are considered crippling. And to think that this is number 2, it's wild to think. And one that's on here that I think a lot of folks in the Carolinas will remember, number 3, March 2nd and 5th, 1960. Remember, that was the year that's the snowiest month all time in Charlotte is March 1960. It snowed every Wednesday that month. And number 3 was one of those storms.
Every Wednesday.
Yes.
Don't we hear about it every year, Brad? Every year we hear that. Remember that time it snowed every Wednesday? It's a great stat, and it should be brought up every year with affection because it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so
that's a great shot, by the way.
Oh yeah, that really kind of shows you the storm. And to get a blizzard meteorologically, Tim, they had Arctic air with this, but you also see the connection to the Gulf, that moisture influx. So that's why it's so rare to get a storm like this. Rarely do you have an influx of really tropical moisture in some cases interacting with Arctic air. And so this was kind of the perfect setup. And look how big that storm is. It does remind you a little bit of the 93 superstorm in some instances, and that was a big one for the Carolinas. But man, those were like the glory days of snowfall. I think those are the ones where like everybody who talks about now is like, remember 96 and 93? And it's like, I think it's like fish stories. The snow seems like it got deeper and worse over the years. But this was a legit one. I think this is one, if you remember this one, this was the real deal. And these were the kind of storms I think people think should happen every year, but they really don't. It's a pretty rare event.
They're rare for a reason. And, if this happened when you were a kid, you were a smaller person, you were a shorter person, all these things, they all play into it. Memories play into it. Yeah. But we're validating your memories here right now and just saying, no, that really ranks as one of the biggest, not just in your lifetime, but really going all the way back through the decades. It's a big one. No matter where you lived in the eastern United States. I was up in upstate New York at the time, and I got to admit to you, I don't really remember that one, but it looks like on the map that I was actually a little too far north to get the snowfall. So for me, my snow memory, my weather memory, it's a little distorted. We got like 100 to 200 inches a year in my snow belt, so it wasn't like a specific storm. It was just like, Tuesdays and Thursdays is kind of what got me interested in the weather. Yeah,
lake effect's tough. It's like a single thunderstorm. It's like you don't remember them. You just kind of remember like a year or a season where it was snowing all the time. Speaking of that, Tim, we had a pretty good lake effect event this past week up in the Great Lakes. I know you posted a map in our chat earlier, and what struck me about, which is typical of lake effect, but even for them, just the tight gradient of a whole bunch of snow and no snow in parts of western New York. You're from that area. I know you're very familiar. Talk a little bit about how crazy those lake effect storms can be off of Lake Ontario in particular.
Sure. So I think it was either last week or, gosh, maybe it was a couple weeks ago now at this point, Brad, that we were talking about those atmospheric rivers out west with that narrow area of really, really heavy rain. This is kind of like that on a smaller scale up in the Great Lakes. But I can pop this up here. This is the snow map I was posting yesterday.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
But
look at that.
Take a look. So to set your geography, Buffalo's over here. That's Lake Erie. This is Lake Ontario.
Yeah.
And this right here, that bullseye, you see where the number 2 is? That's where I'm from. So that's literally my hometown. They got about, 40 to 60 inches, give or take a couple miles. What you don't see is right here, there's like a bubble of elevation. They call it the Tug Hill Plateau. It's about 500 feet higher than the lake. So they usually get enhanced totals over there. But just to kind of see what that looks like on the ground, take a look. So this is a guy driving along. This is up in Boylston, New York. There, look at the guy on the roof.
Holy, yeah, and you have to do that up there, Tim, because your roof will collapse.
You definitely want to keep it clear. Now, I will say, a lot of people think this is a really heavy and wet snow.
Yeah.
It's usually the opposite.
Okay.
It tends to be pretty fluffy and like super big dendrites, a lot of air in that snowfall. So the ratios, if we talk about like how much water to snow, usually you're talking about really high snow ratios of, a couple of, 20 to 1 or 30 to 1 sometimes. But this is my childhood math teacher's house. She sent me these pictures. This is in Lacona, New York, and they know how to get rid of it. So this is a big snow removal tractor they got.
Love it.
And there's the snowbanks. Metal roofs help to have it slide off a little bit. And when the sun comes out, it's pretty. And that's what's crazy about it, is that you can go from that to the sunshine literally in just a couple of miles. So if you were in Charlotte and you had one of these bands setting up over you, dumping 2 feet of snow in the Queen City, you could drive to Concord and it would be sunny. And it might stay that way all day. And that's just kind of the way that these things work, which is unusual to say the least. Syracuse, I think, got about 2 feet of snow with this one. But Watertown got like nothing. And that's just, 30 miles on the other side. So it's really something.
Yeah, it's been a pretty mild winter for most of the country outside of the Northeast. The Northeast has had a pretty tough winter so far. It's been cold and super snowy, and even parts of Virginia, they had a really cold December. It seems like there's just a small part of the country just to our north which has had real winter, and so far we haven't really seen that down south. We're on that edge. But speaking of snow, we talked about this yesterday, Tim, and now we've got some daytime images from Hawaii. Who would have thought, right? We talked about how this is not that abnormal. This is on top of the 2 large volcanoes, which are massive, Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa, which both of them are over 13,000 feet of elevation. And I think even the peaks are like 13.5 or 13.6, but there were winter storm warnings above 11,000 feet. And there was a pretty good snow event there, and we saw some great pictures and time lapses today of the snow. This is another view from my laptop there. You can see this is actually real time. You can see all the satellites they have there and the telescopes, because this is a big research area. This is the Gemini telescope, which is owned by France, but the University of Hawaii helps them operate. Look at the big, almost looks like thunderstorms off in the distance. And I posted this as well, and I had a few people that were from Hawaii that said a common thing when this happens, which it happens more than people think, people from the lower elevations drive up there, fill up their pickup trucks with snow, and take it down to the beach and make snowmen on the beach, and they take pictures, and they think it's like the craziest thing ever. So it is crazy to think that they get that. And I wanted to show one more image. This is from Zoom Earth. If you look closely on the screen there, the 2 ridges, I'm going to put my cursor right there. That's Mauna Loa and that's Mauna Kea. Those are actually snow-capped mountaintops of those 2 major volcanoes on the big island of Hawaii. So I know a lot of folks here are probably going, why are you showing this, Brad? We don't get snow here. All the snow lovers are so desperate. But it is a cool phenomenon, and it's not as rare as some people think.
No, it does happen. And as we explained yesterday, it all has to do with the elevation. I was curious, just as we're talking here, mostly looking at research facilities, and what a better place to research the atmosphere than in the middle of the ocean. That's where we take a lot of our CO2 readings for the atmosphere, stuff like that, because it's really pristine out there. But I wondered, Brett, is there anyone that lives or resides in any of those areas of Alaska that get snowfall, or is it just the research sites? Because it's so high up there. I can't imagine there are many houses.
I don't think there's actually houses up there, but I'm curious. Now that you mentioned, I wonder if any of the scientists actually stay up there, like kind of like Mount Washington.
Sure.
They go up there for a month and they just stay there, because I would imagine a lot of these are astronomers, and so they probably work overnight. So it's probably a good idea for them to stay up there. And if you think about it, if you're into telescopes and astronomy, this is like the best place to be, because near the equator, just to peel back some science, the atmosphere is thinner right near the equator, and you're higher up, so you're looking through the least amount of atmosphere. And because you're so isolated, there's no light pollution, there's very few pollution in general, so you have some of the most pristine skies to look and observe our outer space in our solar system. So it is a really cool. There's probably I think 15 telescopes up there. It's crazy, from all over the world renowned telescopes up there. So I'm curious now too. I'm wondering if somebody actually stays up there. I'm guessing it's like Antarctica, where the scientists go there and stay for a couple months and then they leave. That way. But speaking of astronomy, before we leave you, I want to thanks James for bringing this up. Our tower cam. If you guys, this is everybody, just not us here in Charlotte, but if you want to go out and look, Jupiter is nice and bright in the east sky tonight, Tim. It's in opposition, and it's showing up really well on our cameras. I don't know if any of your cameras have picked it up, but there's a view of it, that big bright orb. It is not a UFO. It is actually Jupiter. And what does opposition mean? It's the closest and brightest it's going to be through the entire year this week. So if you want to check it out, this is a good time to go do it.
Always neat to see, it's kind of just one of those things. You could be walking out of the grocery store and say, well, that's really bright. I wonder what that is. And there are so many cool apps nowadays. You don't need to be a space geek or an astronomy geek to kind of understand these. So I'd really recommend downloading, whether it be Skyview free or Night Sky, or there's so many that you can do. And you just hold the phone up to the sky nowadays, that if you haven't checked in with Brad or you can it'll tell you, yeah, that's Jupiter, and you can probably point your finger on it, and it'll show you the whole path throughout the night, too. So it'll be a good view throughout the whole week, which should be nice to see.
Yeah, and I will say this, if you have any decent binoculars or even a good camera, zoom in on that thing, and you might pick up the Galilean moons, which are the large moons around Jupiter. They're not always visible with the naked eye, but I've just my DSLR, I've zoomed in with a 200-millimeter lens, and you can see them. So that's kind of cool to see those. And there's a couple apps that tell you which moons are where every night, and it's kind of cool. They're lined up. And those moons, by the way, are the size of planets. They're not like our moon. They're huge. So worth a look out there tonight. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're out of time, Tim. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll talk more about the Panthers forecast as we get into the weekend as well. Stick around. More news coming up.
Oh, boy.